Working all week, and just got the time. Just want to come to me in my happy hour. It's so late, so stressing out. No reason why you speak, I won't make you try. Trouble, work it out. We can see my time. Let's be free. Together, no matter, no matter. Hey Tammy, you ready? Let's get this thing going, man. What's up, good people? It's freaking 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. It's Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, that is. It's your main man, Andy Brown. I'm back on the air. I'm doing it live, and I am just excited to be here. I don't know if y'all can see me, but I'm just kind of relaxing in the studio this evening, enjoying this wonderful weather that we're having. Shout out to all the folks who are actually wearing those masks and wearing their nose out. I think that is the craziest thing ever. But, you know, believe it of how we're doing, what's going on. It's the COVID season. And we're in a season where things are going to be changed, things are going to be different, but we have to make some adjustments. And the biggest adjustments that we've had, not only in the workplace, but it is time to actually go back into the classroom. I want to talk about that tonight, and also get involved with some of the discussions that we're going to be having. This is the online happy hour. Your man is back. I'm enjoying this. I hope you are going to be as well. So get with it, man. Just tell a friend. I got a call-in number, got a chat room. We got some people that are going to chime in, give some real talk, and let's just have some fun. Let's just have some fun tonight. So let's get with it. Let's dive into it and really just talk about some things. I'm here. Y'all are live. Let's do it. So if you want to chime in and call, hit your boy up on the horn, 847-47-iLife. You can join into the chat room. You can hit your boy on text message. Yeah, the personal number. But give us some feedback. Give us some play. And welcome back to the Online Happy Hour. Let's talk. So as I'm about to get in, I got a few people I want to give some shout outs to later on and some sponsorship opportunities. But as always, I want to welcome some people on who definitely enjoy themselves and can give you some insight on what's been going on. But before I do that, let me just kind of let the record be known that the disclaimer has to be put out there. There's going to be some things that are going to be said that are going to upset some people, that are going to enlighten you, entertain you, but most of all, help you learn more about what you already know, especially in this COVID season. So as I lay down the game, as we lay down the rules, the thoughts today that are expressed right here on the Online Happy Hour do not reflect those that are online or listening on a regular basis. But what it does reflect are those who are on here and willing to give their insight on the topic. And today's topic is going to be discussed about COVID classrooms. How are we adjusting to the new norm with education? So it's going to be different. I know somewhere across the country, whether you're in Missouri, whether you're in Texas, whether you're in California, whether you're in Florida or even Delaware, you need to know what's going on. So if you're in the East Coast and you're just now chiming in, get ready. If you're in the West Coast and you're just now chiming in, get ready. If you're in the Midwest, tell a friend. We're going to be here for a good minute. So without further ado, let me bring on one spectacular young lady who I've had the pleasure of knowing for quite some time. She's going to give it to us some good game from the educational standpoint as a school principal. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Online Happy Hour, the wonderful Miss Tammy Stewart. Tammy, how you doing? Can you hear yourself? I can barely hear you. Let me turn the volume up on my end because I know I need just a touch of help. What about now? Can you hear me? No, having just a touch of difficulty hearing you. I'm not quite sure why. I hope the fans that are listening can actually hear you. But let's try to make this happen. I want to talk about COVID in the classroom. Okay, I want to talk about some of the things that are going on, the changes that you've seen and that you're happening with. That's the biggest adjustment thus far. So first of all, some people that don't know you, who need to know you, kind of give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you relate to the education industry. I don't think your mic is connected. Is your microphone on? Let me just kind of confirm some things here. Keep talking to me. Let me just see what I got going on. Let me check in the background. She jumped off. Maybe there has to be a reset. So when Tammy comes on, she's going to chime back in on the message. But just kind of wanted to give some folks some true insight on what's going on. We've made some adjustments, man. We've made some big adjustments in the classroom. We made some big adjustments, big time. So Tammy, are you there? Yes, got you now. How you doing, Mary?
So when I left off, I apologize for that. A little bit about my background. I've been in education for 26 years. I started off as a secondary special education teacher. And then I moved to the Department of Education and worked 2 years as what was known as a resident teacher, where I traveled up and down the state, working with elementary through secondary schools, doing positive behavior support, math
Okay.
intervention, and then special ed. Then
Okay.
I went on to another district where I became an education diagnostician. I oversaw basically special education meeting. Then I became a special ed coordinator. An administrative intern was just like a vice principal. And then I moved into my current district where I served as an assistant principal for 2 years. And now I've been the principal for my fourth year.
So what had you excited when you first got into the education field? Why was that your choice?
I had an amazing first grade teacher who came about the time of DSEG, and she just was pouring into me in first grade, telling me how
Mm.
amazing I was, and that I could do it, and that kind of stuck with me, where I wanted to be just like her. And then
Mm.
I went on to college, and I wasn't going to necessarily major in special education. I wanted to actually be a band teacher,
Mm.
but I got to college and kind of found my niche in elementary ed, and they said, well, you might as well get a special ed degree while you're at it. And then I did a student teaching with another amazing teacher, and I fell in love with special ed. I wanted to the disproportionality of African American males in special ed kind of was my focus. I wanted to move them out because a lot of them were in there because someone was afraid of them in elementary school. So they
Really?
kind of became my focus. And then I needed a break from that and went on to work. But I was just excited about working with students and having that same influence kind of that the teachers had on me. I wanted them to love education and do their very best to try at least in some
Mhm.
points to make a better life for them. And I feel like now that I'm in elementary ed, like I get to do that. Like all of my kids, but especially my brown girls, get to see a woman in power, right? That makes the decision. So that has been my motivation. Even though they like to critique me on my clothes, my fifth graders, I enjoy just hugging on my babies and the interactions that we have.
That's beautiful. That really says a lot because you kind of worked your way up from the thought, having the idea to what influenced you, and you worked your way up through the chain to be in the position that you're in. So I know there had to be an adjustment. So, a few years ago, the way that you approached your teachers, your staff, What are some of the things that you prepared yourself to do to say, hey, you know what, we're going to have a better year. I'm going to encourage my team. How did you do that? Because I'm going somewhere with this.
So, as a new principal in the building, the first thing I know that data tells me that transformation takes 3 years. So I knew
Okay.
that whatever my dream was for my school, it was going to take 3 years. So we went from a status of being a school that was always kind of performing below the standards into the second year I was there to meeting and exceeds expectation. And that was all because I took the time, my first year, I took the time to look at what was going well and what wasn't. And then I slowly but meticulously began to implement change. And I focused on not only the academics, because that was key, but I focused on the behavior. So we started looking at our high flyers. We started pouring into them and getting programs for them. So for me, it was one, looking and not coming in and making a lot of changes initially because people don't do well with change. But I
Mhm.
looked at those areas where I knew we could grow, and one of those areas was data. So we continually looked at data. We continually looked at kids, and then we began to put names with the data, so that it just wasn't a number. It was a face. It was a student who was a child that had a background. And once you begin to figure out what is that child's background, possibly what is their trauma, then it becomes a little more human, and then you get the, like, you want that kid to succeed. So I had, I was able to get my teachers to kind of say, listen, if we do this, this, and this, we're going to meet with success. And it ended up being for 2 years consecutively. I don't know that we're going to be able to do it now with this whole COVID, but 2 years consecutively, we exceeded expectations. Now in my building, I'm very diverse. I'm a Title I school. I have students with disability. We call it our BSAT program, which is students with autism. I have a gifted and talented program, fourth and fifth grade. And I also have a Spanish immersion program that just went to fifth grade. And then I have a large ELL population of Bengali and Spanish. So I am blessed enough to work in a diverse school that we have a lot of kids with a lot of needs, but we also have some of the greatest kids in the world. Like, when I tell you that they are amazing and they make my job easy. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I miss not seeing my babies every day, and I call them my babies even though they're older. But they know, like when I say, "Hey, baby," they know, like I'm talking to them.
Okay. This is really good because there's a lot that's involved with this, right? There's a lot that's the planning, the procedures, the execution that you have to make ready for your staff. That's a
Yes.
lot that goes on in that, and you have a lot of control. What is the biggest adjustment? Because when COVID first hit back in late February, early March of this year, you knew going into the latter part of the year, hey, there's going to be some changes, right?
Yeah.
And the main thing of first and foremost is going to be safety. Safety for your health, safety for those around you, and safety for the generation of students that are coming in and out of the building at all times, touching things, licking things, biting, exchanging, fluids, just in whatever they're doing. So, what was the biggest adjustment that you've seen just leaving the end of your school year, going into the new school year that is upon us now? What did you notice back then? And then tell me the adjustment that you had to make going into this new year.
So really, our school year ended. We were in on a Friday, and we were told Friday at like 6 or 7 that we would not be returning for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a shock to us. Even though I had began to prepare my staff, like as COVID began to spread, we started having conversations. We were planning into next week. We were trying to get kids, to get their items home, but we literally had no time. So our district decided to take a kind of 2 week spring break and then get back into it. One of the things I think that was a struggle for all of us was that there was no end to our school year, right? We didn't get to say goodbye to the kids. The way that we ended the year was not what we planned. And also for teachers, it was a huge learning curve because we got into teaching because we care about kids, right? We want to interact with kids. So to have the year end the way that it did, it was a shock to us. Now, up until probably 2 weeks ago, maybe three, we all thought that we were coming back to school. We assumed we were preparing to come back. My administration team and we were walking through the building, counting 6 feet, determining how we were going to let kindergartners know to keep their distance. We were ordering decals for the walls and the floors to let them know. And then the school board said, at this point, we would not be coming back because, quite simply, it came down to logistics. That we would be unable. So on a bus, an average bus for me, about 72 kids can ride a bus. With the new CDC guidelines, that put it down to 23. So that meant that it would be multiple runs, and there was no way that we could get all of our kids together. Now, I'm in a school that we average about 850 kids. So not all 850, they had options of whether they wanted to return or not, but I had enough that it became logistically impossible for me to get the kids into school on time. Then you have to think about cafeteria. They take their mask off. Do they eat in the class? What were they going to do? They have the shield? So it just became a kind of logistical kind of nightmare of how am I going to keep these kids safe? And that is something that I pride myself on. That my whole you send your baby to me, I'm sending your baby back home, right? Whatever that takes, in the same way that they got there. So, I was up late at night, in my head, walking through the hallways, trying to figure out, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? And that's something that hasn't moved away. We're supposed to reconvene and come back in November. But for me, it's about safety. And for a lot of kids, school is safe. And for me to not be able to guarantee that was something that just weighed upon me, and I'm sure the rest of my team, that I didn't know that I would be able to keep those kids safe while they were with me.
Mm, okay. So the main safety about you, so your teacher, your staff, right? How did that work with them? Because there has to be an adjustment. Not everybody's going to be on the same page.
So we did surveys, a lot of surveys, and I had about 50% of my students to come back. Well, their parents wanted them to come back, and 50% wanted remote learning. And that was across the district. And then when we started looking at staff, we had about 70% wanted remote learning and 30% wanted to come back to school. So it really was the information we had. I knew also in doing so that I would not have enough teachers to kind of support the kids that wanted to come back. Now, that was just my school, and the numbers fluctuated across the district. So I'm sure they would have moved people around to support kids. But that also doesn't build a sense of community. And that's something that I pride myself on, is having a family. Our school, we're a family. Or a team, we call ourselves. So when you have some team resistance, you kind of have to figure out. And I kept telling them, we have to do what's best for you, but we also have to do what's best for kids. And kids is my number one focus. So it became a little struggle there on who was coming back and who wasn't. And I didn't get all into the logistic because that was kind of a union issue on who was going to come back or where the needs was. But, as I talked to my staff, I was saying to them, we're here to service kids. And most of them got it. But the ones that did not want to return, either they had young kids or they were taking care of their grandparents, or they themselves had medical health issues that prevented them from coming back to school.
Mm. I like this. I like this because we have to have an adjustment period where it's not going to always be easy. It's not going to always be a smooth transition. But what we have to do is just recognize that, okay, we have to make some adjustments.
Right.
And not only for the sake of what we're doing in the classroom, but for the sake of those who are around us, those children, and even the potential people that are going to come in as well. So what I want to know is, as we're going into the new areas, how do you personally feel about this? This
I'm torn.
got to be a
I'm
lot.
torn, honest, because I had several family members pass away from COVID. I lost my sister during this time, and I wasn't able to go to her funeral. So it was very emotional for me. It was decisions, and I have my own kids that I was still going to work. Right, I didn't get to necessarily work remotely. I had to still do my principal duties and check in on teachers and check in on kids that weren't logging in. And it's hard to do it from home. Now, they did give me some flexibility in doing that so that we didn't have a lot of admin in the building at once. Because if your whole admin team goes down, then you're pretty much who's running the school. So we had some flexible scheduling there. But I also know that for some of my kids, my school is safe. And we give them not only the academic piece, but we give them that safety net. that they need. And the hugs, one of the things I'm known for is good morning friends, and I hug my friends that come in the building if they need a hug. Some kids needed hugs every day, and I knew who they were. They were push other kids, and I'd be like, listen, it's not that serious, but okay. Other kids, I could look at them and be like, come here, my friend, let's talk about something happened this morning. And some kids were just sporadic, but I knew for some of my kids, like, we were stability. We were breakfast and lunch and snack, right? We were hugs, and we were disciplined. Like, we were, no, you can't do that here. So I was really torn. Like I said, what kept me up at night was that I couldn't figure out how to keep all those kids safe. And that was the thing. Like, I would be in there, and I'd be measuring, and I'd be doing different things in my head. And I just couldn't figure it out. And that was key to me, because, like I said, as a parent, you send your child to school and you want some safety. And I just couldn't figure out how to keep all of the kids, all 500, I believe, that we would have ended up with, how to keep them safe um while they were there. So honestly, I was torn. I would have gone back because my kids needed that. But I also know that, when you put kids in situations, especially kids who've not been to school, they don't all the time like to follow the rules. So, if you want to take your mask off, what am I going to suspend you? Like, what am I going to do? You're 5. You know what I mean? So it was thinking about all of those things. Like, what is going to be a proactive plan? How do we encourage kids to do that? So, I work with amazing people who kind of help me flush out things, but it's still a struggle, being that we don't know the true effects that it have on children. Um, Even though they say they're less likely, I know that they're carriers, and a lot of my teachers are older. So, I had to think about all of that too in doing so.
Wow. This is real. And this is the online happy hour. We're talking about the COVID in the classroom. How does this really affect what we're doing and the education of our society now? We're talking about not being able to wear the mask in the classroom. Um, you know as well as I do, those masks are part of our respiratory. It's kind of controlling our breathing. What we bring in, what we breathe out. It's truly respiratory. So with these young children, kind of putting a cover on them, the asthmatic children, we were looking at people who are just running around. They got high energy, and now you're having to stifle a bit of their engagement. So the physical education classes, they're not going to be as enthused to run around if I have a mask on. So you're talking about not being able to control them, whether or not they take their mask on and off in school. Well, there's always that little boy that
Always.
doesn't wash his hands when he comes out the bathroom.
Always.
There could be that little girl who touches a few things here and there and then wants to touch her face because that's just what people do.
Or
They
you
just
sneeze in your mask, right? Like, you sneeze
uh,
in your mask. And yeah, yeah. You see it all in school, and you're just like, I mean, those are the things that cross your mind. Like, even though we have extra masks on there, and then what about the parents that say, I don't want my kid to wear a mask?
you can
Like,
do that.
what do you do with that, right? So it was a lot of questions out there. And then, like I said, I have students with some cognitive and physical disabilities, and by putting a mask on them, I could in fact be jeopardizing their whole respiratory system. And or because they're immune compromised, like, that could affect them. Like, it was so much to think about, because these classes that I refer to, it's about, maybe 5 6 kids with 3 4 adults. They're, some of them are very they need a lot of support. And I was worried about those babies too. I mean, it was just one of those things where you just try to, in your heart, do what's ethically right. And I've been in this because I love it. I love kids, and it was just hard for me to kind of fathom putting a student at risk. In my past, I've had students pass away for various reasons, and it never leaves me, right? And not that it was anything that I could have done differently, but those kids kind of have a special place in your heart, and to know that at some point I could be risking dozens of kids, just that was a hard pill to swallow.
I don't know. I don't know. That's a big thing that you all have to deal with. And so what I want to do, we're talking about you now. You're in the state of Delaware, right?
Yes.
Okay, so each state is going to be a little bit different as far as what they're doing, the curriculum. I don't know why that has to be so different. I'm not quite sure why this is so different. Like, what is some of the major differences that we're seeing specifically when it comes to the mask wearing in in the building, in the public place? So, are you telling me that you're not required to wear a mask?
No, you are, but I also know people are screaming that's against my rights. I don't want to, right?
Hmm.
So you also have to figure out what do you do with those kids. I'm sending my kid to school and I'm not making them wear a mask. So you're like, wait, but the governor has stated that, all
You
kids
can
have
do
to
that.
wear a mask. So it's one of those things where do you risk all the kids or do you fight with this parent over their child wearing a mask? I mean, those are legit concerns that we had. I already had parents saying, I'm if I send them, they're not wearing a mask, they have asthma, like, and it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those
Yeah.
things where you're like, I don't, you would have to. I mean, luckily we haven't gotten to that point. I'm sure at some point we'll have to figure it out. I do have a couple more weeks before I have to kind of figure it out. But it really was just the encouragement. And I mean, let's be clear. I have some kids that are very defiant sometimes. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that work. I don't care what you say. Um, and you then have to figure out a way to positively get them to do what you need them to do. And that doesn't happen just because I walk in the room. While I think that I'm amazing at my job, I also know that I'm not that amazing some days, and I have to tag in other people to kind of help me out. And I just know that some kids, like for them, that's where they make their stand. So, during
Right.
regular times, I got time to kind of work through that. But I knew being short staffed, you got to pick your battles. And that would be a huge battle to get through. But kids sometimes don't process information the same way adults do. So you have to keep that in mind too.
All right. This is real. I'm understanding. I'm getting a couple text messages. People have a few questions, so I can go there. The chat room is open, folks. You can call into the number 847-47 iLife. Again, 847-474-5433. Hit the chat room. Talk to us a little bit about it. Let me just have a quick sip. Oh, and dive right on into this because you and I are doing Zoom. We're doing the video conferencing more or less. This is probably the new norm,
Yeah.
and this is how adults are interacting because we have to kind of remain at our reserved distance, social distancing. So even when it comes to that, as far as the classroom and the things that we're teaching, the curriculum that we're providing for them, what issues are your staff giving back to you that says, you know what, I got little Johnny over here participating, but I can't see everybody. I can't get the feedback from all these other students, and they're causing some headaches because I don't know if everybody's paying attention.
Right. So one of the things that we worked on is student engagement via the different platforms. What does that look like? I am fortunate enough to have a team of two social workers, actually one and a half, but two social workers and a family crisis therapist, along with a dean of students and interventionist. And part of their job is, so I am very much a data person. My teachers have to fill out a Google form that tells me, which students are having some issues, which students weren't logging in, which students weren't completing assignments. And then it becomes that team of people to kind of reach out to the parents along with the teacher. So teachers are always the first level of response. My expectation is that you, as the teacher, reach out to that parent and say, hey, I see that Bobby wasn't logged in today. Is everything okay? Um,
Okay.
if the parent doesn't respond and they try again, right? Because I always feel like I should not be the first one the parent hears from. You are the teacher, you should reach out. After that, if it
Mm,
doesn't work, then my team goes about it. Now, my social worker has been with our district for over 20 years. She knows a lot of families. She goes to houses. So they were going to houses. They were dropping
really?
off devices, knocking on doors, saying, hey, I haven't seen it. Do you need anything? So I am, like I said, fortunate enough to have an amazing team that I can rely on. And as an administrator, listen, I'm calling parents too. I'm calling kids. I'm emailing them and having conversations, because it's important for me to continue to build relationships. So my kids know that they can email me and I'll email them back. Miss Stewart, I miss you. I love you. I love you too, baby. How's your work? Are you okay? Do you need anything? Right.
Right.
Just creating those relationships with my families and my kids has been tremendous during this time. But I mean, I had kids that, we could not find. Like, we had no idea where they were. And that was the job of my family crisis therapist, to kind of look up in the system to see, hey, where are these kids? Because not only am I accountable for them, but they're our kids, and we need to find out what's happening. So that system that we used when we first left school is the same one we're going to be using now, except that I'm going to be having my specialist, which is reading, not reading, music, art, PE. During some of their time, I'm going to have them reaching out to kids, along with my school psychologist, my special ed building coordinator, like all of these people who in normal times will be doing different things. I need you to come and assist and make sure our kids are engaged.
Okay. Now, I like that. I also want to know how this is truly affecting those who maybe have short attention span. Not everybody learns the same way, and
Exactly.
you may have that one child who is more the ages that you're overseeing in your school. What are the age groups there?
K to 5. So you're talking 5 to 11.
Okay.
A very, very interesting age. So we have, like I said, my special education teachers, most students that have some attention concerns, and don't get me wrong, I don't just deal with attention concerns. I have students with some cognitive disabilities, right?
Mm,
That are in different settings. But one of the things that we've done over the summer is we've pulled their IEPs and we've taken a look, or their 504s, and we've looked at what are the accommodations that they need during remote learning, right? So I know what you need during school, but what do you need during remote learning? So the teachers have the capability of doing small breakout groups, or taking a student over to a group and kind of refocusing them. So I
okay.
saw a lot of that during the previous year, of teachers just breaking with kids and saying, okay, friend, you can earn what we call a cash out, right? If you're able to complete the next 3 sentences, or able to do this. So working with the students and the parents to kind of say, listen, I get it. They need a movement break. So in our schedule, their teachers have built in movement breaks. Now with the younger kids, that's a little easier, because you put on a little video and they dance around or do whatever. With your older kids, you have to be creative. So it could be like a game break, or something like that. Like I saw one of my teachers do show and tell, or scavenger hunt. Like they had to go get something fluffy and bring it back, and they showed it on the screen. So we've had to be creative in making sure that we engage those kids. But it really comes down to my special education teachers knowing the child, or getting to know the child, and trying to figure out what is going to work for them to keep them engaged.
Okay. I'm digging it. We're talking live about COVID in the classroom, folks. Now I got a couple hangups here. I'm not quite sure why. I'm gonna take care of a few technical difficulties. But you can also hit me up, 847-47-I-LIFE. That's 847-47-I-LIFE. Miss Tammy Stewart is joining us right now, all the way in Delaware, giving us some insight on what's going on from the perspective of the school district. I'm gonna talk to some parents here in a little bit, but I also kind of want to see, where you really see this. Are we looking at this kind of a short-term thing right now, or do you think that we're overall looking at this to be the new norm as far as how we're teaching these children?
I hope it's not the new norm. I truly hope it's not, because my staff and all teachers, I don't want to just act like my staff's the only one. Like, we miss kids, and that engagement, that building relationships, that building the culture, is in your building or in your classrooms is key. So I walk through my building now and it doesn't really feel like school. It just feels like a building. And I just
Mm,
said to someone today, like, oh, I really miss our kids. And then I saw a couple kids outside, and they ran over and they wanted to hug me. That's what we do. I see you, hey baby, how are you? And I had to go, oh, I can't hug you. Like, and the look on their face was like, oh yeah, that's right. So it's just very hard on us as educators, or the majority of us as educators, right? That we miss having that interaction. The way that kids learn, we know that kids learn once you build that relationship, right? There's always outliers, but kids learn when they know you care, right? And they want to do better because they care about what you think about them. And now we're having to kind of get to know kids through this artificial platform. And it presents some challenges. You don't get to see, them come in the morning and smile or have those sidebar conversations with them, or when they do something, you can give them a high five. Like all of those things that we do to positively encourage kids, we've had to revamp and rethink about that while learning a new platform, right? While learning how to engage in this new world with your new curriculum, ensuring that kids are continuing to make progress and analyzing their data in a different way. So it has truly been kind of a whirlwind for us, because how do I observe teachers now? I go into a Zoom, I sit, um, and I'm trying to pull out what I would normally pull out in the classroom, right? I could look at classroom environment. I could look at the questions on the wall. I could see the building up of the lesson, or what we call scaffolding. I can't all the time see that in Zoom. So it's and how do I principal from a Zoom? Right? My kids know
Right.
me. I go down the hallway, I'm very loud. My kids know I never need a microphone. I just start yelling 3, 2, 1, and then I just look at them, because the expectation is I shouldn't have to get to zero, right? You know what it is. So to not be able to kind of do those kinds of things that sets your school environment has truly just been a struggle for me to wrap my head around. Just what is my new role in this? I knew what I did in the past, and I did that, in my opinion. I did that well. Now I'm like, wait, I gotta wait. I mean, I'm jumping in and out of, and at that time we were using Zoom. We're using something else this year, but I'm jumping in and out of Zoom meetings or classroom lessons, trying to determine, okay, is this appropriate? What's this student over here doing? Did they address this? I'm looking up information on this student, and I'm sending them private messages like, hey friend, are you okay? Like, it's so much. I think, and I tell people, I've worked harder than I probably ever have, because I'm trying, along with teachers, to figure out this new method. And because
Okay.
I am blessed enough to be their principal, I'm trying to support everybody, parents, students, staff. And it becomes quite draining. Sometimes I have to walk away and do some wellness for myself. Like, okay, Tammy, it's okay to not know the answer to that. It's okay, to not get a reply to your email immediately so you can answer these parents, or these teachers back.
That has to be a big adjustment. And I don't know if we're looking at the new norm, like you said, if this isn't going to be the new norm, but if we're investing the time, right? We're investing the time to say that this is going to be the adjustment. This is what we're going to do. Something has to give. And I don't know if it's necessarily the method that we're doing, or maybe some of it, and I'm not quite sure, but this is what I'm hearing. Some people are telling me it could be the delivery of who's delivering the message. So you know as well as I do that most of the classroom, over 78% of instructors, teachers, educators, whatever they're called nowadays, are women. And you don't
Hmm.
really get to hear, from men in the classroom, on the chat, facilitating. We don't really get to hear that. So it could be, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm looking at it from the smaller child perspective. Sometimes that deep bass in the voice can kind of wake you up and say, "Hey, I need you to pay attention. I need to get your interaction." And it may or may not be the case, but sometimes that can play a big role in it.
I would say I think it depends on the person, because I got some I have some staff that know how to get kids motivated, right?
Hmm.
One of the things that I have really worked hard on is diversifying my staff. Now there are not a lot of men in elementary education. Let's be clear, it's not the chosen field. Um, but one of the things I think that men give to the field, outside of just kids, I'm all about kids seeing people that look like them. So regardless, if I just hired a Hispanic male to teach my Spanish immersion, and I'm super excited that my Hispanic male kids get to see somebody that looks like them, right? So I'm fortunate enough where my administration team consists of an African American female, and then myself, a dean of students who's African American, an interventionist, and then a Caucasian male. So my kids get to see diversity as far as my team is concerned. But across the building, I've worked very hard to ensure that when kids go to each grade level, hopefully there's somebody that they can relate to. I think, I'm not a male, but I can tell you what, the bass in his voice get them quiet. I don't need a microphone. I don't need anything. And that's always been the case. I've always, when I taught secondary, I could walk down the hallway and those seventh and eighth graders knew, oh, here come, at the time I was Miss Grimes, here come Miss Grimes. Like, she don't play. But they also knew on the other hand that I loved them, right? So there was that balance there. I would love to have more males in there. And I'm gonna tell you, most of the males in my building are not, they're soft spoken. Like, they're not, they get me. Miss Stewart, can you they know, but I think what kids get to see is a different temperament, and that's what they need, right? Because a lot of the men in my building just are very laid back, whereas, and I know as women sometimes we get a little hype, right? So we try to, I try to offset that with my team. Even on my team, they know, like, I'm in there, like, what's happening? They like, Stuart, we got it. Like, go back to your office. And I'm like, okay, it's one of those things. So I also respect that kids respond differently to different people. So I listen, it ain't my time. Don't tag me in. Like, I'm good. If you got it, you got it. Like, I don't, because I'm the principal, I don't need to be in the mix. And while I don't want you to disrespect me, I also know that sometimes personalities don't mix, and you could have a better relationship with my dean of students who's a black male than me. And listen, I'm okay with that. I just want you to be great. So whatever that looks like, I want you to be great. And it don't necessarily have to be with me.
Mhm. I dig it. I'm getting a few text messages. People are a little bit, they're cracking up at what you're saying. Because I guess some folks are not allowed, if you will, to talk about what's going on. Uh, who knows? But what I want to know is, I want to address this because I know there are some parents out there. Yes, there are some parents out there who have to make that adjustment. You got your child at home with you in their classroom. You set up the desk. You
Mm-hmm.
set up the area. This is what they're going to be doing. This is what they're going to be learning. Taking the
Yep.
pictures and posting them on social platforms. Oh, my baby's cute. This is the first day of school. They got their brand new laptop and they got all the books and everything laid out. But are they really doing this work? Are they really attentive? Because I don't know about you, but even as adults, yeah, the setup is nice. But there could be one or two people that be like, I don't want to do this for that long. I can't stare at the screen for
Right.
16 hours at a time. Not even the gamers do that.
Right. So I think the scheduling is key. So we have what's called an asynchronous and a synchronous schedule. During your asynchronous time, you don't necessarily have to be live, right? You can work on the assignments kind of at your own pace. You have a week to turn it in. And then there's a synchronous time where you are live, where there's a live teacher providing you feedback, providing instruction. We think because this is kind of our first go around, that that's going to be the best model. And when you talk about, sometimes I think that sometimes people forget that I'm a mom too. So I have to set my own kids up. Like, not only am I trying to educate my 850 kids, I got to make sure that my daughter and my son, who started his freshman year of college, which, he on his own. Um, but my daughter is key in doing what she's supposed to be doing. Like, I'm not just home chilling either. I mean, I'm actually at work, so she's kind of, the expectation for her, unfortunately, because her mom's a principal, is you need to get that done. So I think, like, what we've done as a district is going to help students, because there's times that you need to be on and there's time that you're going to be off. And we build it so that parents can take breaks with their kids when needed. And listen, we get that for some parents this is a struggle, because a lot of times I hear, well, I'm not a teacher, well, give me your salary. um
Mm,
and I often say, well, ma'am, you do know that we didn't ask for this. Like, we would rather, for the most of us, like, if this did not happen, we will be doing this daily. But what we want to do is support you. So what can I do, or what can my team do to make this a little easier? What do you need from us to help? So sometimes having those conversations. I know that 50% of my parents were not happy with the decision that the district made. And I get that. As a parent, I get it. You have to work, you have responsibilities. um but now that the decision is made, I didn't make the decision. I'm supporting the decision, right? As an employee, what can I do to help you? What is it that you need from me so that we can meet somewhere in the middle and collaborate? Because it's really not about us, it's about the students and having that student make growth.
Hmm. So how do you do it? How do you do it? And do you how when you do it, do you have what has to be eliminated? Because some things have to change. I can't do push-ups and sit-ups in physical fitness class facing my computer, or can I?
So our specialists had to be creative or have to be creative in what they're doing. So it could be instead of running, you're doing some mindfulness, some yoga, some of those type things. It could be you're keeping for the older kids, you're inputting a log of how many jumping jacks or push-ups that you did. It could be you're watching a video on health and wellness, and then you're answering some questions in music class. It could be you singing along with the music teacher and telling her what you thought or recording yourself. We've had to be creative with band. Like I have band and orchestra. We've had to be creative with that. So kids recording themselves or the teacher giving lessons by groups via Zoom. Like we've really had to be creative in how we can continue to meet the needs of the kids. And one of the things that I'm offering my staff is after school clubs for kids. So if we had a knitting club, can we still do knitting? Can we put things in the mail for kids who want to join the knitting club? I'm having a Spanish club where you log in after hours. So I'm really trying to have my staff and my kids have some normalcy to what we would normally do during the school year. But it takes creativity, and it takes people willing to kind of say, you know what, let me try it and see if it works. That's always been my motto. Let's just see if it works. If it doesn't work, we can't say that we didn't try, right? So I think for I like I said, I have an amazing staff who kind of follow me, um, and say, you know what, Tammy, I'm gonna get us a try because it's you, but I don't know. So I'm very appreciative that they believe in me enough to say, let's just see what happens, right? Let's give it a try and see what happens.
I like it. Now you may get a little bit of pushback because there isn't a change. There's an adjustment. And not everybody's
Absolutely.
ready to make that adjustment because hey, this is my classroom. This is the way I operate. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do things that way. This is my class. I know what my students like. I know what my students need. And right now, with the way that things are going, this is not going to be the best for them. So, are you beginning to see a little bit of pushback from your staff?
I don't think it's necessarily pushback because I run a very tight ship, right? Our job
Okay.
there is to educate, motivate, enrich kids, right? We're striving for excellence. So the pushback that I get sometimes is just a misunderstanding of your interpretation of what I'm asking you to do. Most of
Mm,
the time, I can meet you in the middle, right? However, there are guidelines and standards that we have to follow. And we're rule followers. That's the one thing I tell my district, whether my students, my staff, whether you agree or disagree, I'm a rule follower. So we're going to follow these rules. Now, if you can show me data otherwise where you've implemented this with fidelity that it doesn't work, then let's have a conversation. But if it's because it's about you and not about children, then we have nothing to talk about because our job is to service children, right? So whatever that looks like, we're going to do that. And my staff knows that. I love my staff, and I'm willing to compromise on a lot of things. I'm not willing to compromise on the education of students because I don't want or didn't want someone to compromise on the education of my children. So I always keep that in mind. Is this what would be best for Anissa and Anthony? Is this what I would want for them? And if I can answer that with a no, then we got a problem. We're going to have some conversations, and we're going to have some professional development, and we're going to have some one-on-one time, and I'm going to be observing your class. See, they don't want all that. Like, you don't want all of that. You don't want me in your classroom every day sitting and seeing what you're doing and providing you feedback. It's not a I got you moment, but I'm obligated to those parents and to those kids to provide them with the best education that I can give them. And that includes you doing your job, whatever that looks like. So let's compromise. Let's figure out where we can meet in the middle. If not, they made me the principal for a reason.
good. Bringing on to the show right now, in Delaware, Miss Tammy Stewart is giving us some good games. So what I want to do is also invite a young lady who's teaching at a different level, also in a different state. Miss Yamika Jenkins of the Dallas, Texas area has chimed in. Yamika, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Say hello to Tammy Stewart in Delaware.
Hi, Miss Stewart. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
So going in here, Yamika, thanks for making time. So going in, we're talking about COVID in the classroom. You know, the biggest adjustments that we're having, and from the principal's perspective, Tammy's giving us some insight on what she's doing and what she's seeing, speaking to her staff. Now, if you can give us a little bit of insight about you, what you're doing, what your position is, and I want to kind of enlighten people who are tuning in and listening a little bit about how these two can correlate, because these students are going to be affected big time by what we have to say.
Well, I'm a teacher of pre-K children with the special needs. It is interesting, to say the least, of course, with everything that's going on right now, to make sure that children with disabilities aren't left out, forgotten, or not serviced in the manner in which they would be served if we were still in the building. So ultimately, since day one of the pandemic, when the previous district I work with shut down with spring break. So during spring break time, I planned for remote learning, even before being told that we were going to be remote learning, because we hear things. We're all in the system. We all looking at social media. We all watching the news. So pretty much we knew what was coming up. So day one after spring break, I was already signing in, having my first circle time on Zoom before we were even given the clearance that this is what we would be doing. Because as a teacher, I made sure from day one, before we even entered a pandemic moment, I was already using technology in my classroom.
Okay.
So coming into the situation that we ended up in, my students and parents were already prepared, because this was something we did every day.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when it comes to, I guess, leadership and the decision makers, because as teachers, like Ms. Stewart said, it is what it is. We're going to follow the rules. This is how it's going to be done. No matter how uncomfortable it may make the teacher, it is not about us. It's about the children. So we go in with the anticipation of providing the best possible instruction. So most times when I'm talking to other teachers who's finding frustration in remote learning or remote teaching, it's because they're uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's not about whether or not the students are uncomfortable, because students are excited to see whatever they see when they see it. They're good. If you can get on there and say ABCs every day, as long as you're interacting and providing them something, they're good. But when we get taken out of our comfort zone and not being able to provide instruction at a level or caliber at which we want to, we begin to get uncomfortable. So it's a little bit of resistance at that point. And I was just talking to another teacher this morning in the district I used to work in while I'm somewhere else, because we've been in school since the 17th of August. And she's like, you've been doing this for 3 weeks. She's like, I envy you. Like, I don't know how you did it. So I'm sharing with her, because she teaches gen ed pre-K, whereas, I'm sped pre-K. I share with her what I did. She say, I really thank you, because that saved my life today. Because going into a situation, she didn't teach pre-K previously, so she had no idea what to expect. And that's the only way this is going to work, is if we're working together. We've been in this for this going into our 4th week. They're coming in to their 1st week. We're preparing for our kids to come back in a couple weeks. So we're still moving in a manner in which we're hoping and praying, keeping our fingers crossed, that our children will into the room. My biggest complaint right now is I get bored throughout the day, because,
Really?
Oh yeah, I get, and I laugh because with my instructional assistants, one day I walked in and said, okay, this is what I want you guys to do. They got so excited because I gave them something to do, because we were so ahead in planning for our students that we ended up having nothing. Like, it was at the point where we were beginning to plan for the next week and then the next week, because we were so on point with our circle times. That organized them by days of the week with everything, all new instructional pieces that we were introducing, all activities on every platform. We're using Visual, Seesaw, Cahoots. Today I just got something for math. I'm not even sure, but I'm going to use it tomorrow. But it's just whatever they give us, we make it a point to utilize it because it makes our job easier in the manner in which we provide the children what they need, but it also frees up our time so much because when the children are in the building, it's always something. They're always here. They're always there. It's always something for us to do. But with them out of the building, it's easier for us to be more prepared for them for the educational pieces because we're not worried about the behavior pieces. We don't have that concern.
Oh, interesting. Tammy, how do you feel about that? Are you seeing some of the same things?
Yeah, my staff had a lot of downtime initially. Right now, we haven't started. We decided to start later. We actually start next Wednesday. I during the day, absolutely. Like my days used to fly by. I got my 10,000 steps in. Let's be clear, I was moving. This is a whole new world for me because I'm sitting in front of a computer. I think one of the things that was said that was beneficial is utilizing the platforms when you get them. And that's something that my staff is struggling with because we don't have kids right now. And we can't seem to get the student view, right? My teachers are eager to figure these things out because we know what's going to happen, right? I'm going to have kids log in and they say they can't do it. And that means you can't do the work. And my teachers aren't able to kind of troubleshoot beforehand because most of them are pre-planners. I mean, you're a teacher, you are pre-planning what's coming up. So, I definitely get it. And when she talked about special ed, that's my heart. That's where I started. So I've ensured like my special ed teachers submit a log every day of who they worked with and what they did. And that's for twofold. One is to protect them because, sometimes people will say you didn't do this, this, and this. But two, it gives me an insight as to what they're working on, whether those kids are meeting their goals and objectives based on the information that I can see. So shout out to you with preschool. I'm not quite preschool. You can have that. I love the babies, but them are babies.
I thought that before because before going into elementary, I did middle school for about 12 years and showed up in a elementary classroom and thought I was on vacation because the amount of social emotional elements that go into a middle school I didn't have to deal with anymore.
Yeah.
So,
I taught it, so I know exactly what you're talking about. You like what?
Yes.
The first time,
what? So going into preschool, when I told my family I was gonna do it, they was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna see you on the news. This is not good." Because I am not like the little kid baby person. That's not me. It'd be like, can you watch? Can you babysit for me? You better ask the babysitter. I'm talking about my daughter. Like if she's not here, I can't do it. But when I walked in there and I was able to see children learning, it turned everything around for me. And I just told my new assistant principal, I said, I just learned to teach until I went into a unit. And I've been teaching, this is my 20th year, and I've only been doing this for 4 years. So going into a classroom like this, when you're building a foundation and putting up the walls, everybody else come in and put up the rooms and the roofs. I have to provide them the foundation in order to go on to the next level, to be able to grow from here. And when I go into a classroom, every child I meet, my goal is to get them out of there.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave me and go into another unit. That's never my plan. For the last 2 days, I have talked to a former parent. I haven't taught his child in 3 years. And he has called every day during the last week about his child and instruction. And they haven't even started school yet. They started school today. But to be able to get that, and this is what, like now to work with children that don't know me, those kids, had experience even before I walked into their classrooms. They would see me on the hall somewhere, or when they came up to visit with their parents, they saw me. To meet these children now over a computer, and when they see my face, they light up. They're speaking. They're, hey, Miss Jenkins, to be able to hear your name for someone that don't even want to talk 90% of the time is like music to my ears.
Yeah.
So it was a little challenging, but it was a vacation from OD talking about all the other things that middle school kids talk about. I have to remind them, I'm your teacher. We don't talk like this, like
Wow.
I couldn't deal.
So even in the event that what you all are doing, it sounds like the one thing that you miss the most is the interaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Knowing that you don't have that anymore, or this could be the new norm, I see some pros and cons to this. I'll talk about the pros momentarily, but the cons sound like, you're just not getting the same excitement out of it as you once did. Is that correct?
I don't. Yeah. Go ahead,
Okay.
Jenkins.
No, I'm gonna say I can't say that I'm not getting the excitement, because what I do it for is what I'm still getting. I'm still getting the opportunity to see them learn. I'm still getting the opportunity to see them interact. We just not doing it live and in color. They're still showing me their personality. They're still participating in all instruction. It's just I don't get to see them running around the room.
And I would agree. I think you have to be creative in how you now
Okay.
develop those relationships, right? So the normal way that I would do it in person and all of that isn't working. So it could be that, I used to have lunch with the principal. I may have during one of their asynchronous time, okay, my friend, I drew your name out of a hat. On this day, we're going to have lunch together. So bring your lunch. I'll eat in my office. You eat at your home, and let's talk. So I'm really trying to think outside the box how I can continue to build relationships. I'm lucky enough that I'm a kind of a neighborhood school too, but my kids know, like, you can email me, we can Zoom, we can whatever you need to do. If you need to see me, or I feel like, there's a connection that I have with some kids, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to call you. Or I'm going to, when I walk into or Zoom into teachers' meetings, they
Okay. I'm hearing this. I'm hearing some things that really made me think about this, because as a parent, my son is no longer dealing with the classroom interaction. He's having to deal with not able to actually be in the United States because of COVID, not be able to come back in, which is in and of itself a whole other topic. However, what I am seeing, the pros of that is, look, you have the ability to reach more students who may not be able to get the same type of education, and may not be able to hear from you or the curriculum that's put in place, because they're not immediately in your area. I think, and this could be wrong, but gone are the days of, let me go ahead and give a different address because my baby's not in this district, to get him to be a part of that curriculum.
Not necessarily true, because you still need to live in the area depending on the school, because as of right now, unless they're going full virtual, I mean, not the school district but the child, because they have online schools for children. So in order to attend school, I just had a student just now had to use his grandmother's address in order to get enrolled in our early childhood school. So yeah, you still need the address. And unfortunately, if we were live, all 5 of my students would be at school. Since school has started, the most I have had on any circle time, Zoom or one-on-one or anything, is probably, I've had 2, but my instructional assistants had to do it Friday because I had a meeting, and they had 3. So, but I have 5 on my roster. 1 I've never seen, and 2 I've never seen, but I've seen at least one of their parents. And no matter how much work we give remotely that they have access to without me, I'm still only seeing those 3 students. But if we were live, all 5 of them would be there. So I think
Okay.
with this remote, because especially for children like mine, because parents still right now have an option of putting their children in or not, because legally they don't have to be at school right now. And so my parents are choosing not.
What does that mean?
You know, you don't have to go to school until you first grade, really. What's 5, 6?
Okay. I thought you mean their attendance.
No. Well, I mean, once
So
they
what is-
attendance matter, but if they enroll and stop coming, they're absent. Attendance matter, but they can opt not to enroll them. They can take them out.
Interesting. So are you having a difficult time doing the virtual? I mean, the virtual classroom.
I'm not having a difficult time. The the parents, because this part I can't control. I can control a parent signing on for their children because my children are small. They aren't able to sign on to their own Zoom to participate in their own instruction. So for that, I have to rely on parents. So if the parents are working, I have one dad, he works at night, gets off in the morning, and sometimes he'll sign his kid on for Zoom or they'll just do the remote work. But most times he's asleep because when he comes home, his wife is going to work. So
Mhm.
that part is difficult because I have to depend on the parents, but the extra instructional piece, no, that's not difficult.
Okay. Are you? And this was the question we asked Tammy earlier. So are they able to, as far as the participation, the interaction? What are you getting that way? What are you seeing that's a hindrance to what you're trying to accomplish as an instructor and a facilitator?
Right. Besides the parents being able to put them on, because again, my kids can't do it on their own. They need their parents
Mhm.
to get them signed on. Even if they sign them on and walk away, I'm good, but they have to sign them on. The other side of it, a lot of the instructional pieces, I try to avoid the multiple choice, click the answer type thing because I want to encourage them to think through, manipulate things, move things. But because my children are children with a disability, fine motor might be an issue. So manipulating the screen, understanding that in order to activate something that needs to be moved, I need to touch it and hold it for a second, then move it, as opposed to touching it and going because it's not ready yet. So, getting them to learn the wait time. So that kind of goes into social emotional, something that we would address while they were in school. And most times when I have to address wait time, it's because they're ready to do something they want to do, as opposed to waiting a second to get something to happen instructionally. I need to wait before I can go to the gym. I need to wait before I can get my snack. That's usually what it has to be, something they want to enjoy as opposed to, answering the question. But it's just participating in those manners. So I'm finding myself having to do a lot of click items, something they can click to show their responses. Because that was always my biggest concern. I'm sorry for talking so much, by the way. But that was always my biggest concern when this first started. And I started with Kahoot because I needed something to where my students were able to show me that they were learning. Me coming on, doing this, talking to them, that wasn't working. I mean, we were already using YouTube. We were already using Boardmaker and things like that to where they had technology in the classroom or homework that they had to do at home on the computer. So to come into this situation, I just need to figure out how, outside of what we was using in the classroom, how I can use it in circle time or
Mhm.
in the one-on-one so I can see that they were learning. So clicking things, counting objects, selecting the color, selecting the sight word. I wanted to be able to see them to do that. And I'm learning things now, even with this school year, having to share my screen or share my remote or share annotation on Zoom to where they can actually use their Zoom on their side without them having to share their screen. Like it's so much that can be done. This doesn't have to be difficult. We just have to put in some thought to it.
Interesting. I'm hearing that it's not going to be a bit of adjustment, but you have to have what you mentioned earlier was that the parents really have to be more involved now. No, I guess gone are the days where I just send my kid to school and hope they come back and things are going to be okay.
Yes.
Could be a tough one.
with the little kids, that's normal. Parents are, I always say, parents are involved up to third grade. After third grade, parents disappear. Parents are from pre-K up to about third grade. You'll see a parent. You'll interact with the parents, especially for special children with special needs in their IEP meetings. The parents will be there every year. At about third grade, you get to find who is your mom. Like what exactly, mom, you participate over the telephone type thing.
I don't know. I think this is cool, man. I think we're actually learning, getting a little bit more insight, and really just hearing exactly what the main issues are, what the main concerns are. And I'm learning. If no one else is getting any insight today, this is what I'm learning. I had a couple text messages come through, and one person wanted to ask, how is this going to affect, hold on, how is this going to affect Halloween? How is it going to affect Halloween at school? So I'm guessing, how are we going to? Yeah. I'm now I'm looking at it more openly. So you're going to have extracurricular activities at school, right? Has that been totally eliminated? Because now you have parents who probably can or cannot come and pick their child up. There's going to be, different activities that students maybe want to get involved in. How do you adjust to that? Does that make sense?
That's a Miss
After
Stewart
school,
question.
I'm talking about,
So
well, right
we're
now,
talking about. Say again.
tell me the question again, because I'm a little lost.
Oh, sure. So what they're saying in the text message, and I can probably chop this up because not everybody's using. You know what? Let me come back to this one. So here's what I really want to ask, and it ties into this choppy text message. I'm not gonna put the person on blast, but let's just look at this. Let's say that my curriculum, my language is changing. You all know this. Every 60 years, the language changes, the dialogue changes. So I'm looking at now instructing students in reading development programs, right? For instance, TikTok is out. We're familiar with the app TikTok, TikTok. But in my generation growing up, TikTok was spelled TickTock. So do you correct the child? Do you correct the error in the grammar and spelling when you're asking for the language and the shift that's already out there that's a little bit different in more of echoic words that are being used nowadays?
I think you absolutely do that, but you do it in a way that shows the difference. Like, this is how they're writing. This is the true form. I mean, I think all kids need to know how to know the nuances of words, because if you don't know the nuances of how words are put together, then you're not going to be a good reader. But I think you also allow that, one of the things when I have kids who are in trouble and they write down what happened, I go back and I go, so tell me about this word again. And for some, it's, oh, I didn't know, or some are just being lazy, right? But I think kids need to know that that is not the correct spelling. I don't think you make a big deal and try to embarrass them about it. You just correct it and say, listen, my friend, and I use friend all the time because they're all my friends, but when you're writing formally, this is how you would spell it. So, I'm not opposed necessarily to kids kind of using, the younger grades, they use inventive spelling all the time. But you slowly teach them, when these two vowels go together, this is the sound that they make, because that's how kids learn how to read. If we don't correct them, then we have students who are not reading, whether we agree with the sounds or not, right? That is what we accept. So I think you have to teach them the correct way so that they know how to write those words. When they get older, I mean, I abbreviate. So I can't get mad at you because that's what you're doing. But what I can do is tell you the correct way so that when you see that word outside of a text message or in whatever, that you recognize what it is.
And then for TikTok is an entity. It is a program. It is an app. So basically, that's its name. When you're talking about TikTok on a clock, that's something different. So even either way it go, the K sound is the same as a CK sound. If they can spell one, they're going to learn to spell the other. But it is not the goal to change the name of the app TikTok to accommodate the actual way TikTok is spelled in a dictionary. Because by the end of the day, when we finish having that conversation, TikTok, the app, is going to be in the dictionary. So I mean, it's kind of like Andy with the Y and Andy with the IE. Do they not both spell Andy? But one is Andy the guy and one is Andy the girl. So that doesn't negate the fact that they don't both sound the same. TikTok, the app, is TikTok, the app. It is what it is.
I get you. I get it. Well, we're learning while we're getting good feedback. And I think going back to the question, thank you, ladies, for definitely making time for this. A couple more things I want to do, and we're going to wrap the show up, is what was mentioned about the activities, the extracurricular activities. Are those really being held right now? What's the workaround? Does that look like? And is that going to be something that's universal across the board? Or are we taking that step, state by state, area by area, district by district?
I think that's a district by district. For example, in the state of Delaware, each district was able to make the decision on whether they were reopening, whether they were doing a hybrid, full remote, or something like that. Because traditional wasn't an option. I think it's district by district that gets to make that decision, because you then determine, do you have the capability of keeping kids safe and following the guidelines. Like I said earlier, I want to try to do some creative after school things, because my kids are used to that. My kids are used to some small group instruction and reading. They're used to clubs after school. Now, while I can't give them the full experience of being in the building, I can attempt to kind of give them some normalcy in the things that I can offer for them until we're able to come back and until we're able to do it safely.
Okay. Well, looks good. I got one final question that I want to ask you, ladies. Tammy, you can lead this off because I know you're in the East, and your time is a little bit faster out there. But the last question I want to ask you all for the night is, what should we look forward to as far as with the adjustment with COVID? What are some of the things that you all look forward to? What can we look forward to say what we're making good progress? We're only a few weeks away from voting, but what can we look forward to with the change that's happened now to say we're going to make this happen? If this is the new norm, we're going to make this happen.
I think it's a lot of things that come out of this. Not only one of the things that I was able to do was really delve into my staff about racial injustice and really get them to see some of the perspective of my students that we interact with, or our families. I think what it has done is it's brought some sensitivity into the way that they interact with kids and get them to understand what some of our kids are carrying around with them, and maybe open up some hearts that weren't quite all the way open. I think it has given us an opportunity to have real dialogue about how do we engage students. I think it has also opened up technology, especially for those teachers who weren't as happy to have it. It's kind of forced them. I've always been pushing technology. I was on my way to getting every classroom their own Chromebook, up until our district did just go one-to-one. But it was sometimes it's the discomfort of the teacher, and now you got to kind of get over that piece and say, you know what, this technology can not only work during this time, but when we return to our classrooms, we can use this to break into small group. I can record my lessons and send it to a student that's homesick so they can see it, or save it for when they come back, or reteach this lesson with them, but not actually have to, do it myself. I can sit them with a paraprofessional and have them run through it. It builds them a library of things. My students choral read. You can record all the books you have recorded now. And while if you're struggling, especially a student with special needs, you already have it on tape. You can just replay it for that student. So I think it's opened up a lot of avenues for teachers that they didn't know was necessarily available, or that they could do, or they weren't utilizing it to its full effect.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Mika, what about you? What are some of the things that you see there?
I don't see this being my new normal. I don't accept it.
And it might not be.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard to say because right now I'm looking at the right now. I'm looking at, where we could be, where we need to be, and because like I said, we've been in school since the 17th. So every month the kids are coming, the kids not coming, the kids coming, the kids. I feel like double dutch. I don't know what's going on. So I just have to live in the moment and provide the best I can for right now. Um, for I have to look at situations if and when they come back. How am I gonna? I can teach, and I have taught little ones to keep on a mask because way before COVID, if they came to school coughing, they were getting a fever check, washing their hands, and putting on a mask. Way before COVID.
Got
I
it.
mean, almost to the point where somebody probably should have reported me, but way before COVID, we were doing this. We were making sure that we were not infecting each other because I understood and had to accept that even though they were sick, some parents still had to send them to school, whether or not they needed to be there or not. The only time a parent would keep their kid at home if they fever pop and they had to stay at home those 48 hours. So I learned a long time ago about mask, but how do I teach a little one that
I
feeling
learned a long time ago about
don't jump off my lap. Don't come, stay away from each other. Stand over there 6 feet. I'm how am I gonna be able to do that? How can I teach a child to stay up? You too close, that doesn't even sound right. So that's the part that kind of concerns me the most.
but how do I teach a little one
How am I hearing myself? Y'all hear me?
I learned a long time
Oh, keep that off. I don't like the way I sound. This is what my kids hear when I be talking. Oh my God.
Well, I definitely want to thank you, ladies, for giving your insight. I definitely want to wrap the show up. I thank you for making time. This has been very enlightening. And overall, what I must say is, even though this is the new norm, we're making adjustments. It looks like we still have a long way to go. And we can make more adjustments not only in what we're doing, but how we continue to maneuver. And this is one of the better ways we can do that. I've got a way to maneuver not only online, but the platform is back that we can communicate and talk with one another. This is the online happy hour brought to you right here live via iLife Radio. We're getting in. We're going to have some fun. We're going to continue to communicate. Had a few technical difficulties, but I mean, hey, it's the first time back, and this is how we get it done. This is how we do it right, and this is how we just make it happen. So, ladies, thank you for making time. Please continue to share with others. I'm going to be here every Tuesday and every Thursday from 7 o'clock p.m. until 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So my East Coast folks, I'm starting at 8. For my West Coast folks, I'm starting at 5. Get your drink together, get your peers together, get your thoughts together, get your boy up via social media platforms because there's no more excuses. It's time to get real. It's time to keep it 100, and it's time to keep the platform together and keep the family growing and knowing. Thank you for all that you do, ladies, in the classroom and in your school districts and for your community. I think it's a wonderful thing. I'd like to see a little bit more from the children and from the parents on this one because, hey, these are your children, not to just push somebody off on somebody else's responsibility and think it's their job just to, raise your child for just a few hours. But we got to do it. We got to get it done. So that's my coaching. That's the opportunity that we're presenting right now. And don't miss another one. Tell your friends, tell your family members. It may have been a little rough right now, but you're going to keep the party going. So in all that we do, everything that we share, keep it enlightened, keep it ready, keep it going, and keep yourself educated. I want to say good night to my family. Go mob to my frat, and I'm gone. It's your main man, Andy Brown, saying thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Mika. Thank you to all who listened, chimed in, logged in, listened to me right here on the Online Happy Hour. Good night. Thank you.